Beware Romulans bearing gifts.
Hi, this is Eric.
And this is Marcella.
And welcome back. It's Romulans Bearing Gifts. This is episode 77. And back by popular demand, Marcella is back in the house to share with us her pearls of wisdom related to TOS and Star Trek in general. I'm looking forward to it. And before we get into the episode, I actually was curious about something else.
Okay.
As it pertained to revisiting the episode last week and this episode that we're about to discuss. I'm curious, did you watch the special editions, quote unquote, the remastered, altered, newer versions of the TOS episodes, or did you somehow see like the original?
Oh gosh.
Original.
I saw whatever Paramount Plus had. That's what I watched.
So that is definitely the restored or special edition or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, because in the last episode, I was like, when they spent a lot of time as the Enterprise was moving on out into space, I was like, well, it looks a bit current.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I watch a lot of first-time reactors like to TOS, and when they're very like starting the series and they've never seen it before ever, that always throws them because they're like, what am I looking at? Like,
yeah.
And they always say, this is pretty decent looking CGI. And it's funny because I know a lot of them don't even realize CGI didn't exist in the 1960s, but they just say it anyway.
Model.
But yeah, so I was just curious which version you were watching.
Yeah.
Because in the episode we watched last week, Is There in Truth No Beauty? The part where Spock put down the visor and then the camera went red, like red tint.
At the beginning or at the end?
Yeah. When she arrives on the transporter and then he puts on the visor and then the whole image goes red on screen.
Okay.
Like I was like, because I was watching the special edition first and I was like, is this the way it always was? So I went back and watched the original version and yeah, it actually was all just like that.
Really?
So yeah, that was just exactly how it was. There was no alterations with that. But I was just wondering.
Yeah, I'll have to pull out my DVDs for that. I will say I was a bit lazy and Paramount was just like versus finding the DVDs and
I do the exact same thing all the time, which I always want to watch the physical media at home if I own it. But then yeah, it's just the convenience.
Yeah, and you never know, like if it's one where I think current day they'll do some editing to it,
Yeah.
I'll be like, I want to see the original. But for the last episode, I could be wrong here, but I didn't think they'd do much editing to that.
You are correct about that.
Anything current day that would be too
very minimal. But no one cares about this, what I'm going to say next. But speaking of convenience, again, I want to promote physical media and keep it alive and use it and love it. But when I was trying to watch Is There in Truth No Beauty on disc earlier, or actually it was Wink of an Eye. But anyway, when I was looking for I have the Blu-rays right there. It was so hard. Like there's 6 different discs or something for season 3. It was so hard to get the discs out of the case without accidentally snapping the discs in half. And then there's no insert or anything that tells you what episode's on what disc. And there's like 5 episodes on every disc. And I had to like put in the first one, but not just put it in. It had to like load up and then go through the trailer and you couldn't skip it just to get to the menu and be like, oh, it's on this disc. I had to try like 4 different discs. And that's just crazy. I like lost like 12, 15 minutes of my life like switching discs and trying to get them out of the packaging when I could have just gone to Paramount Plus and just there it is.
Yeah, I understand. I think I think physical media is really important. I always, when I love something, I always get the physical media because you never know, when they're going to pull like a Han shot first thing on you. And when it's like, it's not cool or woke enough, for what just happened, and they'll change it, or Disney will do some imaging, like, they'll put more hair on the person, so I think physical media is really important to have because you never know when they're going to edit it or deem it unacceptable to own.
I can't believe I'm going to go on another bunny trail before bunny hole before rabbit hole before we can get into the actual episode discussion. But I told you I first grew up watching TOS on broadcast television in England, and it's well known that for decades many episodes of TOS were censored for UK broadcast. So there was like many particular situations, possibly the iconic kiss. I'm not sure off the top.
Oh, that iconic kiss had multiple, yeah.
But I mean, things like that and other things.
They never really kissed, did they?
I don't know actually, but a lot of things were censored. So I was actually watching unknowingly like censored versions of certain episodes. But yeah, whatever.
You want to? I mean, for me, I always want to keep it as original as possible. I know Uhura and Kirk, if you look at the one that aired, they never physically touched. So they were like a couple centimeters.
I will definitely look into that the next time I watch it.
Yeah, you should look into it. It's a really interesting thing.
I always like to have access to the original content of whatever it is. But at the same time, I'm not upset about most of the changes in the special edition TOS presentations. I'm fine with the vast majority of it.
It's okay. I mean, everything else looks 60s to me, so I would prefer a model. I just feel it's more, if we're already in the 60s, let's just fully stay there. But I understand how they want to, do the model instead of having like a start, like an Enterprise NCC 1701, like hanging in the space, just have a cool computer generated one. I understand that, like moving and doing things. So
yeah, I so wish DS9 could get the same treatment that TNG and TOS did. DS9. Yeah, but I really wish it could get that HD treatment and revision. But anyway, that is such a conversation for another day.
DS9 is my second favorite. So
that's nice. I was curious about that too. But anyway, finally, we're gonna get into
Wink of an eye.
Wink of an eye.
Something. Well, I was looking right at him, and he just wasn't there.
Captain.
Do you mind explaining? Who are you?
The enemy.
Captain Kirk. He's gone.
But Spock, you don't know what that'll do to you.
He's gone. It was quite delightful kissing you when you couldn't see me.
Hila.
But now...
Hila!
You're right.
I'm sorry, sir. Entry's forbidden.
Wink of an eye. I'm springing this on you, but I'm going to let you take the reins at the start here because I really don't have anything.
Oh, I'm all for this.
Great. Well, by all means.
Okay. I know when I first saw this episode, I got, don't judge me. I got really fangirly. Like, I saw Kirk, Spock, and Bones together, and I just, my little fangirl heart just like went all crazy. And I, like a mental thing, I was just like, this is what Star Trek is to me. You know, it's not about, I know a lot of people think it's about ships and the different versions and everything about the ships. And for me, it's Kirk, Spock, and Bones. So when I saw that and the episode opened up like that, I was just so excited. And then to remember it's season 3 and be let down from there.
Wow.
So,
wow.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. She's just really not a fan of season 3. Or again, the reason I chose this one, I was keeping with my theme that I talked about last time, which is I'm trying to focus more on season 3 because it definitely feels like when it pertains to TOS, it's definitely the biggest undiscovered country for me right now, where I feel like
me too.
It's become a blind spot because I haven't seen them in so long. And so I was sticking with season 3. That was easy. And then I knew what else to choose if I was going with season 3, which is I just have such fond memories of seeing this when I was really young.
Really? This episode?
Yeah, this one in particular.
Really?
I have really fond memories because the whole concept of what's going on, I just loved that as a kid. I just loved it so much. I loved thinking about it, like the concept of a species that operates on a different frequency, or like in a different sensation of time, and just the concept as a child, I just thought this is so amazing. And I would just think about the concept, not necessarily the episode itself, but just the concept of it. I would think so long about it, and like
really,
like all the possibilities of what you could do with something like. I can't think right now. There's a couple other things out there that used. There was like a Twilight Zone episode, classic. It might have been redone in the 80s version of the series as well, that dealt with this concept of a character who could essentially stop time. I haven't really watched the whole movie, but the movie Click with Adam Sandler.
Oh yeah.
For example, but just this idea of you could just freeze time, or they don't freeze time in this episode, but you know what I mean? The concept of moving on a different level than everyone else just completely fascinated me. So I always had very, very fond memories of this episode. Not clear memories of the whole thing, just remembering the gist of it. And it's really just an episode I really wanted to revisit for ages and ages. I'm talking decades here.
Wow.
And I think this is my first time revisiting it in decades.
Wow, that's awesome. I had no idea.
Well, there it is.
It's not a bad episode, so.
No, don't worry. You can say whatever you want. I'm not going to have any feelings hurt or anything like that. So there was a distress call. The Enterprise goes to investigate, but they can't find any inhabitants or even any creatures or anything, any life on this whole entire planet, which appears to have had like a fairly technologically advanced civilization. We can see their buildings and everything around, but no organisms. And they beam back to the ship, but there's some. A crewman vanishes first of all on the planet's surface.
Yeah, about that. Like that was one of the first things I was like, wait, why would he drink the water? Like, do you see him? Like, you see him drinking the water. I'm like, you're in a red shirt, first of all, and now you're drinking the water. I'm not surprised you're disappearing.
He was just really thirsty. Pretty much. We've all done it. Drinking from random fountains and wells.
Have we?
Yeah, when you're thirsty, you're thirsty.
In a red shirt? No.
Yeah. Hey, somebody composed some stats that said, like, over the course of the series, there was actually more loss of life with tan shirts.
Really?
And then blue shirts and then red shirts. But I didn't check, the veracity of that study. But I read that recently. because a lot of the tan shirts who passed, they weren't just nobodies. They were like, officer characters or whatever, officer characters. But anyway, yeah. So he vanishes. They come back to the ship, and then there just seems to be like some type of like mosquito like noise that seems to be around.
Yeah.
And so when you were watching this now,
yeah,
did you remember what was going on, or were you trying to figure it out again?
Yeah, I didn't remember. Again, season 3, you know what? I didn't spend too much. I guess I didn't revisit season 3 too much. I didn't pay attention to it too much. But I just thought it was really interesting about the mosquito noise, and then I just didn't care too much about that poor little red shirt disappearing. It's just they kind of went on. So that was the thing I was thinking about is once they called in the captain for his little check, I was like, wait a second. Are they caring that he disappeared? Some random guy?
Yeah. I mean, they're professionals. They're able to, do their job despite the loss of crewmates. They're just professional like that. So
red shirts disappear all the time. It's just normal.
Yeah, it's not disregard for their lives or being people. It's just putting the job first is all.
Yeah.
But were you able to figure out what the gimmick was before it was fully revealed in the episode?
I don't know. I think once we kept getting the like mosquito noise, I'm going to call it mosquito noise.
Sure.
Once they transported, that's when I was like, wait a second, that's the same thing they heard. And then my next thing was how to get past the transporter, like how to get onto the ship, which I may not be the best Star Trek person, but maybe I missed that somewhere. Or I always thought that other life forms wouldn't be allowed. Transporter would take care of that.
Well, one would think, if you want to get technical about it, yes, people have issue with that in this.
Oh, did they?
Some people do. Yeah, if you want to get technical about what's happening here.
Let's be Vulcan about it.
Because apparently, yes, they get transported up as the crew gets transported back to the ship. But people have argued that if the computer is unable to detect these life forms, how could it transport them? How can it transport a thing that it can't even detect? So yeah, to some people, it really doesn't make any sense at all. I'm not going to trouble myself trying to figure that one out. So I'm just going to let it slide. But I understand.
You can go with it.
Yeah. But I can understand how some people could be hung up on it.
I went with it, but that was throwing me off of later on. I was like, wait a second. So how did it get there? Because it's the same kind of thing. But no, I didn't know. I didn't know it was in the water either. I didn't remember.
Oh, yeah. I didn't remember that.
It was in the water.
Yeah, for some reason, I was imagining they would like hit them with a dart or something. Or I don't know what. Yeah. I didn't remember it came from the water. But how about when Kirk starts transitioning or whatever you want to call it after he takes his drink and things started getting weird
from the yeoman.
Did you start to pick it up at that point?
Oh yeah. Even a little bit before when they showed, first of all, when we get the first red shirt and he's drinking from the water, the first thing that went into that I thought of was like, why is this dude drinking from the water of some random planet he doesn't even know about? And then he disappeared, and I was like, okay, it's something to do with the water. So when they started making the coffee, so I was like, okay, something's up. So when it started bubbling, they showed Kirk, and it was like his coffee was kind of bubbling. I was like, okay, it's going to happen. And then Deela shows up in all her glory. That was really nice to see that.
See, you like Deela?
I did. Not as good as our list female, Dr. Jones, but Deela, she knew what she wanted. I mean, you got to give it to her. She wanted a cute, sexy man, and she was set on Kirk and to have him as her mating partner. So, even though I that was another question I had. I was like, how does she know she can mate with him? But
yeah, they make it seem like it's not the first time the species has done this with alien species.
Maybe she has seen humans before. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's also that convenience, and who knows, maybe they have, I don't know how it works in Star Trek, but just the convenience that they just happen to be one of the alien types that are already naturally indistinguishable from humans.
Yeah, maybe.
It's one thing when Star Trek aliens are humanoid-like. It's another thing when they're literally human-like. Like, I don't know how that ever works, but again, I'm not going to trouble myself with trying to figure that out.
Yeah. And I mean, for Deela, like, how many breathy hippie ladies do you have, like, that suddenly show up out of nowhere and just, start kissing Captain Kirk? I know there's a lot, but she's very forward in what she wants. She wants Kirk. He's her little boy toy, and she's dead set on having him. So I thought that was really interesting, because we normally see the exact opposite of Kirk going after some lady that he's going to conquer. So I really enjoyed that, of like, oh, she totally knows what she wants. She even says to everyone, I forget the other man that loves her, that is unrequited, but she like even says, I like him. He's pretty. I want him. She knows what she wants. She's been watching him. She goes after him. So I thought that was really interesting, especially for the 60s.
Yeah, I think the character was Rael.
Is that his name? Okay.
I think so. I believe so. I'm not sure how to say his name, but yeah, he was the male that of her species, jealous. Of her type. Yeah, that it was weird, because we obviously just watched Is There in Truth No Beauty, and it was weird that we had, what was his name, Jeffrey?
Larry Mavic, or Larry?
Yeah. Larry. But it's funny how we had that dynamic.
Marvick, was it?
Yes, that's correct. And it's funny we had that dynamic with Larry and Dr. Jones in the previous episode, and then we have something a little bit similar.
Yeah.
In this one, where he's basically like, "Why do you want to get with this like lowly
human?
When I'm right here and we're so great." Well, hello, Rael.
You can't give her a kid.
One of the issues that you guys are having is that the males of your species are sterile. So that might be something that she factors into the equation.
Just maybe.
It's the whole point. Like, what do you think you guys are doing? Like, like the whole mission and everything. Like, what do you think you're even doing? And that doesn't really go with the mission. I will say, I didn't know how I felt at first when Deela came on board. I mean, in the episode.
Oh, really?
The actress Kathy Brown. No, I was just like, what do I think? But over the course of the episode, she definitely grew on me. I mean, the actress as well. She like really grew on me. And she reminds me of, I can't think of the actress's name, but oh my gosh. I was going to say she's married to, she's married to Judd Apatow. So she's the wife of Judd Apatow, the director-comedian. And she starred in some of his movies. I can't think of her name, but if you know what Judd Apatow's wife looks like, she kind of reminds me of her. Leslie Mann. Oh,
I don't know her.
If you look up Leslie Mann, you may not know her by name.
Okay.
But she's fairly recognizable. She's been in a ton of movies. Leslie Mann, Kathy Brown. I mean, Leslie Mann is like Kathy Brown, like reincarnated.
Really?
In my mind. Yeah, visually, anyway. Yeah, so I definitely saw a connection there. And I thought Kathy Brown was great, all things considered. And another thing I found interesting, I can't help but do this frequently when I watch TOS specifically, but obviously, Captain Kirk, gets around.
It's Captain Kirk.
Different women, etc. And oftentimes I find myself just Googling like the ages of the actresses.
Okay.
And comparing them to like the age of William Shatner at the time.
Okay, do tell.
And usually there's quite the disparity.
No, I didn't know this.
No, usually. they're usually...
No, I've never looked up their ages, so I didn't know.
A lot of times, I'm speaking generally here.
Okay.
They're generally, between the ages of 20 and 30 and whatnot, and that's fine.
And what age was he then? He was in his 30s, right? Or no?
He was in his late 30s. Very late 30s. Well, it
really?
Depends if you're talking about season 1 or season 3 or whatever.
Okay.
So it's season 3 he was getting, great. Because when was he born? Was it like...
Okay. Well, he's like
he was born like
92 now, right?
He was born like 36 or something. Yeah, so he was born in 31. 38, I guess, at the time. At this time in season 3. And then...
Okay.
So this is probably one of the few occasions in TOS where we had a female, courting or getting involved with Kirk, who certainly looked youthful herself.
Yeah.
And of those types that look youthful, this is probably one of the rare times that she actually is older than William Shatner. And that's got to be few and far between in TOS. Yeah, because she was actually born in 29, so she was about 39, 40, and I think she looks absolutely incredible for not only 39 or 40 years old, but 39 or 40 years old in 1968, 69. If you know what I mean? Because, people age differently back in the day.
Yeah.
So for her to be pushing 40 and just looking amazing.
Good.
That's incredible.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. I thought she was younger, a lot younger.
Of course. I mean, that's what everyone would assume with most females that Kirk hooks up with. But in this case, she's actually older than him.
Huh. I wouldn't have known that.
I didn't either until I looked it up. But yeah, and she had quite the career, like in television and film, like outside of
really
Star Trek. Yeah. Well, I mean that happens a lot, especially in TOS. And I like how you appreciated her dynamic and basically, looking at the relationship conquest.
Yeah,
very, like her character is like coming from a very masculine perspective.
Yeah, I really like that about her. Like when the first thing we see when she comes on, doesn't she say like, basically she says like she's the baddie. So, she knows who she is and she tells us what she wants. And she tells Kirk what she wants. She's like, basically, you're mine. And man, I thought there was so much more they could do with that. Especially as the episode went on, like she could really, Kirk is always the alpha male in Star Trek, we all know this. But she comes in and she could have been, for me, I was really kind of excited. I was like, wow, she's going to be this alpha lady. She's going to put Kirk in his place. He's going to be her little boy toy, because she even tells him like, you're going to be mine. You're just here for sex. Basically, you're here to help me have a kid. And so I was like looking for that. And then it changed. And then I was like, oh, you had so much potential, Star Trek. So, but I did like how her entrance was, she just told him like, I'm the bad guy. This is who I am. And, she just goes on from there. So I really liked her.
And then, so I was just having this thought now, because I'm looking at the episode in the background, and so we were just talking about how she comes across as very alpha herself.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this was by design or maybe I'm just reading into it and it's not meant to be read into, because I was looking at Rael on screen. And actually, his appearance comes off as a bit effete, if you know what I mean. Especially because his television makeup is quite heavy, so it looks like he really is wearing a face of makeup where it's not really apparent on any of the other characters, male or female. And then he has that choker, which is something that I guess the race is just what they wear. But actually, I mean the males, because she doesn't have a choker. She just has like a gown or whatever.
She's in charge of all of them.
Yeah, and so he has like a choker on, and then it has the little device, which is like their little communicators, but it comes off as looking as like a little like a brooch or something.
And they speak into it, right?
Yeah. Although they do like TNG style, like they tap it with their finger and then like speak into it. So when you see this guy who has this like very apparent face of makeup, choker around the neck, weirdly low crop blouse, and then the thing looks like a flowery brooch. Now, am I reading into it? Like, is that supposed to hint an effete nature of the males? Or is it just what it is? Because, like, especially in like TNG, there was a lot of male costumes that looked kind of feminine-y, even though that's just the way Star Trek design looked. I mean, clothing design in the 90s. So is it just that, or is there some like subtle messaging there in the costume?
I don't think so. I just think it is what it is. This is just my point of view, though. I could be totally wrong, because I think it's just what he is. She's just not attracted to him, as she said she was attracted earlier on. But she does say that Kirk is pretty. That stuck out to me. She was like, "Ooh, he's pretty. I want him." So she does want this pretty boy.
No, there's no question. But I think that adds her using that adjective.
Yes,
that adds to her character feeling like she's masculine, or that the feminine of the species is the more alpha, like between the male and female.
Why wouldn't she want him though? Because he's really kind of pretty too.
Yes, but he's not
alpha. That's the thing.
Yeah, he's beta. He's so
pretty,
beta.
He's not alpha. So, and she even says that once she sleeps with Kirk, she says something to the line of like, "Oh, I kind of liked you when you weren't so compliant. I liked you when you were stubborn." So she likes that that they're feminine, but she wants that man that she has.
Yes. So I feel okay. Now, while I'm still not sure about Rael and what I was just talking about with his costuming, etc., but it's definitely becoming apparent from our conversation to me that Deela's character was written to be like a male character in feminine appearance, like traditional attractive woman appearance. It seems really intentional by design that she's written as like I said, like a male character, like a male thinking psyche when it comes to pursuing the opposite sex. And so playing in that theme, the way she's going after pretty Kirk, visually, aesthetically pretty Kirk, that's just a woman going after whatever is considered the ideal male appearance. Again, it's the foil of a stereotypical male masculine character just trying to acquire the most attractive female. So I think that all plays in that intentionally. And then again, by making Rael look a little bit effete, that's just to show not only is he beta to Kirk, beta to Deela, but just less appealing because he doesn't have those quote unquote manly features or qualities aesthetically that this alpha female is looking for. And again, let's not forget that due to the situation, Rael is essentially a eunuch again. So, I mean, it just plays into the sexual dynamic that's being set up. So it's starting to make me think it is more intentional. And the dynamic as a species, the more we're talking about it now, it was reminding me of that TNG episode where they go to that culture where all the females dominate and the males are like subservient. I can't remember the name of the episode.
Yeah.
But I can't help but think about that episode now.
Yeah. I don't know the TNG episode, but this episode made me really feel, especially rewatching it, was all about dominance. And I the whole time I was like, oh, they could have gone so much like further, and they just stopped it. It felt like they got to a certain point and they remembered, oh, this is 67, 68.
Yeah.
We can't go this far. As far as we'll get is we'll allude that they just slept together.
Yeah.
We can't even think about having a woman dominate a man. But to me, it was all about the dominance for her, because she says it multiple times that she actually wants to dominate Kirk. So, like when they cut to them after them, or before them having sex in Kirk's bedroom, I believe it is. I was like, oh man, the way she's talking, I'm going to see him like chained up, poor guy, to like some wall, he's going to be really dominated. And, as he's complying to her and playing the game, he's saying, oh, I love this, you're everything. And he's being this compliant Kirk. And I was like, wow, they're really going to go with it. But they didn't ever, go further. So I just thought that was really interesting of where they could have gone. Of she could have actually been the Kirk that we always see, Kirk with the other women. They could have just flipped that role, and we would have been, oh, wow, Deela's such a dominant woman. And all they would have had to done, instead of writing for Kirk, write for Deela, just switch that.
Yeah, I think they did to a degree, and I do agree with you.
They
go with it. Well, yeah,
but
I agree they go with it to a point, but of course,
it's the 60s.
Kirk still has to save the day at the end, and of course, they set it up so that he's just using it as a ploy. Because we'll see, this is still adds to how the metaphor works. Because something I wanted to say during this one, and actually in the previous one as well, about Kirk.
Okay.
Because at one point when we were discussing the previous episode, you said something about, Kirk is like trying to use his ways or something.
Yeah, he did.
And you weren't sure what you wanted to call it during the flower scene. And what the thought that had already come in my mind as I watched these episodes earlier, and I was going to say it then, I'll say it now. In my head, I was calling it Kirk's masculine wiles. Because, people use the term feminine wiles all the time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, these are masculine wiles is what these are. Because, again, she's filling the traditional Kirk role. And so then Kirk is using the stereotypical, like, femme fatale ability of feminine wiles, except it's masculine wiles. And so he's trying to... he's still embodying a traditionally female written character.
But it's aggressive, though.
Yeah.
Not aggressive. It's dominant.
Sure.
So even when he's supposed to be playing the passive role, he doesn't. He still plays this, I'm going to sleep with her so that we can get enough time for Spock to come in and save the day.
Funny. I have to have sex with this woman to buy time. Yes. It's just what I have to do. It's my duty. It's not about whether I want to or
she's dominating me and I'm like this passive Kirk. It's I'm going to save Enterprise with this. Yeah.
Sure, but if you know anything about like femme fatale characters like in noir film, I mean that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to exert their dominance as quote unquote physically weak females, but they're using their feminine wiles to gain leverage over all these more quote unquote powerful male characters. But
they actually do have the dominance though when they do that.
Well, right, but that's what Kirk was doing. I mean,
he had the dominance though, not them. Not her. Deela didn't have the dominance.
Oh, no, yeah, exactly. Because Deela's playing the female. Deela is playing the traditional male role, and Kirk is playing the traditional female role. So by him being dominant in this situation, that's how femme fatale characters are, who are females, but they outwit and metaphorically overpower male characters in noir films. So you see, Kirk is overpowering, but it's through a feminine avenue, so to speak, because he is in the feminine role.
I can see where you're coming with that.
Because basically, kind of what we've been dancing around this whole time is that the dynamic between Deela and Kirk is it's a gender swap in terms of roles. It's a gender swap.
To be as much as the 60s can do it.
Yes, absolutely.
At a certain level, though, they didn't quite get there, so she fully didn't take on the masculine role. I think I think if this had been current day, Kirk would have been
he would have been
handcuffed to the bed. You know, he would have been, he wouldn't have. So they didn't fully go there. That's why he had the power in the end. So never once in the episode did I think, oh, Deela totally has the power in this episode. I always thought that Kirk had the power.
Yes, I agree with that. But that's what I'm saying. That's how femme fatales were in noir films.
Usually you think they have majority. I mean, to me in femme fatale, I always think that they have their sex comes with a huge power. At least for me, this is correct. Is that sex comes with a huge power that females can wield. That's the one thing that you
correct. And that
have though.
That is correct, but that's the role that Kirk is filling in this. That's the thing. And that's why he wins or whatever. Because he's like the male fatale, basically, in this. Because the femme fatale usually leads to like the death of a male character or something like that. And Deela doesn't die or anything, but he definitely wins. That's what I'm saying.
He kind of does, though. He does kill her, basically.
Well, in a way.
He does. He kills her, and she goes compliantly to her death.
Yeah,
her death, like every woman should. Correct. Every
that's definitely what my tattoo says.
Should go. So, I mean, if I was her, I would have. I mean, as me, let's say if I could have been Deela, Kirk would have been chained to the bed. He would have been compliant because I would have beaten him to it, right? Because that's what you need to do. Because she needs to survive. She needs to have her child. And then she would have never let Kirk just put her in the transporter and send her back to the planet where she dies a quiet death of no one ever coming. You know, it was so sad. I was like, man, I would have fought to the death for this one.
Are you really a slash fic writer? Or are you really a slash fic writer?
I'm a slash fic writer.
Oh, interesting.
So that's just how I felt, is that I guess with this episode, I felt like there was so much potential. And the whole time when she was saying how pretty he is and how she's going to put him down, I was like, finally, Kirk, who's dominated all these women, is going to get dominated. And then the whole time it's, I don't know who wrote this. It could have been a man. It could have been a female.
Good question.
It just felt like a man always dominating the woman, especially like when we get to the scene after they supposedly have sex or something, and he's putting on his boots and she's, combing her hair and making herself look acceptable. I was like, man, I wish it had been played out differently. But then I also realized the time period that takes place in. So I was okay with, okay, this is the 60s. We're not going to get too crazy.
Yeah, this episode was definitely written by a man named Gene L. Kuhn, and he contributed quite a lot, especially to the first and second season of TOS. He also wrote scripts for Wagon Train as well. Of course, the show that the concept of Star Trek was loosely based or inspired by.
Neat.
And I guess he wrote similar themes in Wagon Train as he did in Star Trek. His episodes tended to contain strong moral lessons concerning personal redemption or opposing war. And he's given credit for bringing or creating a lot of TOS's idealistic tone. That was Gene Coe.
That's interesting.
Ooh. Passed at relatively young, 49 years old in 1973.
What? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Worked on the original Dragnet, the original Maverick,
okay, that's cool.
The original Bonanza, McKeel's Navy, The Munsters, the Donna Reed show. So yeah, a very prolific guy in the industry.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, supposedly died from smoking.
Oh no.
Lung and throat cancer. Yeah.
Anyway.
Really? Yeah. But anyway, Oh yeah, so another thing I wanted to bring up, because it was on the screen ages ago now, because we got caught up in all that. But also another weird similarity a little bit between this and the previous episode we discussed was, what did you think about, when Rael was expressing his jealousy and whatnot, but he goes for the forced kiss on Dila too, and I was like, holy smokes, how did I pick 2 in a row? And again, he's very much like that Larry character, why don't you just be with me, la la, and then he goes for the kiss. But what is interesting, as I was watching it happen again some minutes ago, is while he goes in for that forceful kiss, if you look at her demeanor in the scene, Dila, she's completely unfazed. She has like a weird grin smile almost the entire kissing scene, as if she's just like as if she looks at this like, this is so silly and pathetic and almost entertaining to me that you're doing this. And so I thought that was interesting too, that he's giving like this unrequited advance, and she's just like, she's not bothered at all, and just like she dismisses it like so nonchalantly.
Yeah, well, she dismissed it before, because I don't know who she told, if it was Kirk or Bones, but she said like, he's been in love with me basically forever.
Well, that's one thing to dismiss someone's affection, but it's another when they're actually going in for a kiss and you're just like, ha ha ha.
At a certain point, you have to ignore it, because I mean, that's the first thing she does when we're introduced to her, is she forces herself on Kirk.
Yeah. You're right.
The first thing she does is, she's this breathy, gorgeous woman, and she comes at Kirk, and the first thing she does is kiss him, and then she tells him, I'm the bad guy. I don't know exactly what she said, but she said like, I'm the enemy, or I'm the bad guy. I forget what she says, but she forces herself on him and then says, deal with it, Yeah. And then basically the next thing she tells him is, I want you. You're going to be mine. I'm going to mate with you. So she's, the fact that everybody else is forcing, their selves on him. She's doing it to everybody else, and she has the power. She's the queen. So she's used to this. So I think that having this lowly man that she's no longer attracted to, I think she tolerates him, is the feeling I got, is she tolerates him because of the past. But if he had done that and he was she didn't know, she would have killed him.
Completely agree with all this. And it's funny, every time you keep saying she said, I'm the bad guy, I just keep hearing like the Billie Eilish line in my head.
Yeah. I mean, I forget exactly what she says, but it's like the first sentence or couple first sentences she says, like when she introduces herself to Kirk, and she tells him she's the enemy. So I thought that was really interesting. She just comes out and says it. She knows who she is, and she goes for it. So she's done it plenty of times before. She knows she wants a cute man to.
Yeah. Hey, I'm very much simpatico with you on all this stuff that we're saying about this episode. I just think it's interesting, because on the surface, I feel like this episode and the previous one we watched, on their surface, there doesn't seem to be much to them. But when we just like hash it out like this, I'm surprised how much like juice there is to squeeze out of the orange. Because it doesn't seem apparent on its face. So, and maybe this was like a crazy ongoing theme in season 3. I don't know, because as I told you, I've obviously watched these 2 recently. Okay. And the only other one I watched recently was Spock's Brain.
Yeah.
And it's been a month or so since I saw Spock's Brain, but as much as everyone derides that episode, let's not forget that was another like female dominated, they were almost like, I guess based upon like Amazonian types or something. Yeah. And so now I feel like I need to watch more season 3 to see if this ongoing theme was just extremely present throughout the whole season, or maybe I'm just picking out the exact ones. I don't know.
That'd be interesting. I would be interested in watching. I haven't watched all of the episodes as well. Like season 3, I usually just ignore. So I'm like you. It would be interesting to see more of season 3 and to see, because these two were really interesting in how maybe they just didn't have the money and they were like, we'll just do whatever,
Yeah, and let's be clear to the listener who either maybe hasn't seen these episodes we're talking about right now, or it's been forever. Let's be clear. These are not considered TOS classics in any way, shape, or form.
No, yeah, not at all.
So that's why I'm saying it's remarkable that these are not really loved episodes, but yet there's still quite a bit to talk about if you really think about it.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're more of a, to my ladies and men who are more of a Kirk Spock / person, I really enjoyed the scene at not the very end, but towards the end when like Kirk sees Spock. He runs into him in the corridor, like the walkway, and he like sees him and they give each other a little smile. I was like, oh, that was this is why I love Star Trek. They gave this look like, oh, I know you're here for me. You're here for me no matter what. You accelerated yourself for me. Like that's how much Spock,
wait, what does that mean? Oh, that's what you meant.
Yeah, like Spock,
I thought you meant figuratively.
Water, he'll do anything for Kirk, and that look they gave, like, oh, you came for me. I was like, this is why I watch Star Trek. This is the little slasher girl in me coming out. But I just loved that little moment that they had in the episode, with it not being one of my favorite episodes, but just that it was just that little moment of, oh, they just love each other, whether it's, whether you want to say they're best friends or more. It was just that classic Kirk Spock moment that I just loved. And my little heart just went like, oh, this is why I love the show so much. So I just really loved that.
Yeah. No, I don't want to sound corny when I say this, but I mean it. I love that you loved that in the episode. And I mean that sincerely. It sounds like I'm being sarcastic, but I'm not. I really love that you love that. And then the only last thing I really had to say on my mind on this one is that, again, this is considered the season that had like the lowest budget and had to do the most that they could with little, like to get the scripts and then to produce them and try to make a show out of this. So, I mean, understand that's where they're coming from with season 3. And that being said, just like there was some interesting visuals in the previous episode we discussed, there was an interesting use of Dutch angles in this episode of tilting the camera.
I didn't notice that.
But and it's done really it's subtle, but yet done well at the same time, I think. In modern television, especially Discovery,
okay,
they go absolutely ham wild. That's not even an expression, but they go ham wild with like Dutch angles, and it's almost off-putting and dizzying when they do it in Discovery. But in this, I found it well done, aesthetically pleasing and interesting.
Really?
And I think the reason they did it was not just to be fancy, but they did it to kind of indicate whenever we're in accelerated time mode. And so whenever it was accelerated time, then that's when they would tilt the camera to kind of indicate that things are a bit askew here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So again, for what could be considered practically a throwaway episode, I thought that was a nice touch.
I didn't. Okay, I'll have to. Okay, so tell me, what is a Dutch angle? Yeah,
it's when you take the image, or like, picture the camera, and you just slightly tilt it to the left or to the right.
Huh. Okay, I'll have to rewatch those parts because I didn't notice that.
I don't know how well you know the First Doctor, but you're doing a lot of little First Doctor-isms right now.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah.
No, I don't know.
He's very known for his
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just like, okay, First Doctor much? Okay.
Nope, don't know it. Sorry.
Sound like
I'm sorry. That's the thing I do when I'm learning something new.
It's okay. The First Doctor does it quite a lot at times.
Oh no. He's kind of a creeper. Oh no.
So, oh no, and that's another aspect. That's a whole different conversation. We can do that on MHC one day.
No.
But no, that's a whole other thing. But I don't know. Did you have any final observations or things you want to say before we get down to rating this?
Oh, final observations. I guess the final observation, I was hoping for a lot more. I think they got so close, and then they didn't get there. And then the second thing was, I never noticed that they alluded to Kirk and her Deela having sex before until now. Like, I've seen it so many times, and I never picked up on that. So when I watched it this time, I was like, wait a second, did they? And I was like, how did I miss this? But other than that,
that's funny because I think I kind of missed it myself. If it wasn't for you bringing it up during the conversation, I kind of didn't notice it myself.
Yeah, I never noticed. And then it was when she was doing her bed, he's like putting on not his clothes, maybe I think a couple boots or something, and I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? And they weren't answering, I guess she was supposed to be answering her little intercom or something, and she wasn't. And that's what threw me off. And I had never noticed that before. So,
yeah, I didn't notice it, but when you say it, it completely makes sense.
So I guess in the time of the 60s, I was like, is this a little risque here? I mean, he's always there with green women or, but I thought that was really interesting. But it didn't, other than that, I didn't really have anything that stood out to me.
Yeah, it's, we talk about this a lot when we're doing older or classic movies, but the Hays Code was a really big thing in the industry. It mainly pertained to film, but the Hays Code was a huge thing back in the day, and that's why a lot of sexual situations had to be censored in some kind of way. So prior to this time, that this episode was made, many directors and writers were already very keen to know how they could imply that characters are having relations.
It's called the Hays Code?
Yes, the Hays Code. It was a big thing. I'm trying to look up the exact years of when it was in place. Like I said, it more pertains to movies.
34 through 68.
Yeah, exactly. 34 to 68. So all movies, or American movies, that came out during that time period, there was very strict rules of what kinds of things you could suggest or show. So because of that, writers and directors had to be very creative in how they would imply things. Like one of the classic examples of representing coitus or sexual relations is when you have the train going down the tunnel, like two characters are having an intimate moment, and then it cuts to the train entering a tunnel going into a mountain. That's a classic one. Another classic one is anytime you see they cut to a water fountain and it starts spraying the water, like Married with Children or something.
That's interesting.
These are these are coded hints to dance around the code, so to speak. So even though the code finally ended in 68 for film, I'm sure a lot of those ideals were still pervasive, for broadcast television,
Oh, definitely. I'm sure they couldn't get anything past.
Right, exactly.
Lucy and Ricky, slept in separate beds, but she somehow got pregnant, and just really interesting. And if I could be totally wrong here, but I don't even think they could say the word pregnant. It was. They really had to fight for that. So
it's possible.
Yeah,
it's possible. And it's funny you brought up the bed thing, because I could be totally wrong about this, but I think I was watching some type of video recently talking about Japan and staying in a Japanese hotel. And look, if we have any Japanese listeners, by all means, send me a tweet and tell me I'm wrong. But it was in the video, they were saying that if you go to a Japanese hotel, that you would still often find separate twin beds, and not a full size bed or whatever. But again, if you're Japanese and you know better than me, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I just saw this in a video recently.
Push those twins together.
Yep, that could mean a lot of different things. But anyway, yeah, anything else before we rate this?
No, that was it.
Awesome. I'm going to let you choose this time what our unit of measure is going to be.
Gosh, what did we see in this episode?
There's a lot of things, but I'm going to let you.
1 to 5 beds then. Since we were talking about
that. Okay, we'll go with beds.
I mean, it has to all do with she needs to have a baby, so
okay, we'll go with beds.
I would put it at 2. I had so much hope for this episode. It started off really good for me when I saw Kirk, Spock, and Bones all together, and just went down from there. So I'd say it's a good solid 2.
Okay, so under normal considerations, like if I was just coming into this relatively blind as a Star Trek fan, I would probably again give this a 3, like I gave the last episode, just because. Again, while it's not a classic, quote unquote, there's still a lot to unpack, and that to me is fun.
Yeah.
But because I have the nostalgia points, as I said, I had an affinity for this episode when I was young. So I definitely have to give it no less than 3.5 beds. Because because I still enjoyed it, and like I just had all these childhood memories of just thinking, this is so cool. And it's so funny to me as a kid. You know, obviously I was drawn to the time displacement situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like many things I saw as a kid, I never would have thought that as an adult there'd be so much more to notice.
Yeah.
The story, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure I had no idea what the aliens were really doing other than taking over the ship. I didn't understand why they were trying to take over Actually, even now I don't know why they're trying to take over the ship because why are they trying to deep freeze or cryo freeze the Enterprise and all its crew? Like, if you already move like so quick,
right?
Like, why do you even need to mess with any of that stuff? But anyway, we don't need to reopen this.
We're going back into it.
It just doesn't make any sense, actually, when you think about it. But I don't care that it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. But yeah, so there you go. And that's that. Now, I don't know if you remember this. I hope I don't catch you off guard. But did you pick an episode that you and I can talk about next time on the podcast?
Oh, gosh. Yes, I did.
Oh, great.
Don't judge me. I love A Taste of Armageddon, Season 1, Episode 24. One of my favorites.
It's funny that you chose this one.
Oh, really?
Just in that I don't remember much about it off the top of my head.
Really?
Oh, wait. No. Maybe I do, but that's not important. We'll talk about that whenever we talk about it. Okay, I remember it now because I'm looking at some images and I absolutely remember what it's about now. But the reason I thought it was interesting now is the costumes of some of the foot soldiers or whatever you want to call them.
Oh gosh, they're horrible.
Oh no.
Those little weird hats.
No. They're interesting, but while they're not exactly the same, they kind of remind me of the costumes in the 1968 or 67 Romeo and Juliet. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes, I love that one. I need to go back then because I didn't pay attention.
Now, they don't look exactly like that. They don't have those hats. But they have these, but like especially like the Montagues and Capulets, the teen characters have these like odd, very of the late 60s type of costuming. And so it makes me think of that. It also makes me think of an unpopular episode of Voyager, which has like the weird clown character.
Oh no, clowns
played by Lenny from Lenny and Squiggy in
Laverne and Shirley?
Yeah, but the actor who plays Lenny, he plays the weird psychotic clown-like character in Voyager.
Oh.
That's a very disliked episode, but there's some weird costuming in that episode, and this reminds me of that too. And it reminds me of the costuming. Reminds me of a couple characters I saw in my big One Piece anime watch that I've been on lately. There was some characters I saw like in episode 80 something or whatever, and there was a couple of characters who had weird costuming like this as well. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But closing out the show today, this is Eric.
And this is Marcella.
And until next time,
live long and prosper.
Beware Romulans bearing gifts.
You say any Star Trek quote you want or phrase.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Pick anything. It doesn't matter what it is.
I have no idea. What do you all normally say?
You know, when we can't think of one that's original.
Live long and prosper. You go back to the normal.
We use that one. We use like engage or make it so, or I mean that's what we usually say when we can't think of anything.